Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. It's always a pleasure to sit down with you once a week and bring you all up to speed. Hopefully, we can give you some clarity into some of the broader topics today. And I do want to start and thank each and every one of you for all the support. We do have a lot of new followers and subscribers. So I just want to say how humbled I am by the fact that you're giving us your time and attention for an hour every week. It's not something I take very lightly. It's great to see you again, David. How's everything with you and Judy?
Very well, very well. You know, life is just seeming to just keep on moving very quickly, and we're trying to get lots done in the family. And of course, the space is just heating up like crazy. And so that's an exciting time. That's a very exciting time, I think, for the whole community for sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
First off, I think we should, kind of reflect on what happened last week. We did see a major correction. I wouldn't even call it that. What we saw is a massive selling and liquidation. And to the audience, I really hope many of you recognize that as an opportunity. And I think it's also important to clarify that that was not a random event. It's actually tied to the rate cut. And the market is simply just adjusting around it. When rates shift, liquidity flows differently, and institutional money, of course, begins to position itself accordingly. So if you've also been following the on-chain data, there's a lot of information that will confirm it. That institutions are stepping in, they're not stepping out. And on top of that, we see a lot of the updates on the ETFs from BlackRock, Vanguard, and now several big institutions. So before we get into details of Swift and some of the things we have in the headline over here, can you bring us up to speed, David, on the new ETF information from the SEC?
So right now, and if I can, I'll just see if I can't just pop this over here and I'll share this. Let me just get over here and I'll share this. So right now, the SEC is actually requested all of these ETFs. Now, I hope you guys can see this, but it requests a withdrawal for Litecoin, XRP, Solana, ADA, Doge, and all that kind of stuff. But the reason is because the SEC just announced these generic rules that is going to fast track the approval of a lot of these digital asset ETFs. And so they're saying, hey, look, just go ahead and withdraw what you've got in there. And, you're going to be able, it says the new generic listings now eliminate the need for individual 19B-4 filings for each cryptocurrency ETF proposal. This is going to be massive. Now, this is just one article, but there's a lot of them. And now this literally just came out in the last couple of hours. And so we're seeing a big time shift in the whole kind of like MO of the SEC, because, of course, under Gensler's SEC, man alive, it was drag your heels as deep and as hard as you could to get anything across the line to see if it could be approved or whatever and that kind of stuff. Well, right now, they are trying to fast track everything that they can. And I do believe that the month of October into November, this next quarter that we're going to see, is going to be astounding for, pumping out a lot of these exchange traded funds. But this is like brand new. It just came out. And, I absolutely believe with these spot ETFs, it is going to have an impact on the space, because remember, right now we are seeing the biggest volume of institutional buying for XRP that we have ever seen. I mean, it is at its absolute peak, and it's almost like a frenzy buy, and they are going hog wild. And I believe it's because this stuff is coming out. So that's a big, big deal right now.
No, thank you for that information. Just to confirm also, ETFs are really going to bring a lot of regulated capital into the digital ecosystem. So we're talking about a few $100 billion, and gradually it's going to be in the trillions. Also, BlackRock, didn't they just come out with a new fund?
I believe BlackRock was dealing with something in a partnership with XRP as well, in that I think it's their build product, the BUIDL, their product that they are actually working on having that available on the XRP ledger. And it's right now, I think there was an interview last week where Robbie Mitchnick, now we know Robbie Mitchnick came from Ripple, knows all about Ripple. And he went over to work and head up the digital desk over there at, BlackRock. and he was questioned about, hey, a specific XRP ETF, and basically what he's saying is, hey, look, we're heading in that direction. He did not specifically come out and say it, but we know darn well they're going to get there. I kind of liken it to how, all these central banks around the wide world with the G8 and all that, the SEC, of course, in collaboration with all these other, or not the SEC, sorry, the Federal Reserve, in collaboration with all these other central banks. It's almost like a game they play. Okay, you do this first, you do that first, you guys do this, that, and then we'll just come in at the end and that's kind of how I think this is going to go down. BlackRock is definitely going to have their thumb in this pie. They have their thumb in every single other pie that exists. So come on, this is one they're going to be involved with, I believe.
I mean, this is really where it gets more interesting because essentially it's a tokenized fund, right? But if you read the detail here from Brad Garlinghouse, it actually says that it's redeemable into stablecoin-like units. And if you follow the trajectory, that does go back to RLUSD, Ripple's dollar stablecoin, and that's positioned for settlement on the XRP ledger. So I think that's the next real milestone ahead, because if you connect the dots to your point, you're talking about BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Apollo, and all these other giants, and they're all building out tokenized funds. But it all ties back to the treasury infrastructure. So the common denominator for settlement is still XRP.
Yes. Yeah. At the end of the day. And that's because of the bridge asset capability that it provides. It's not a CBDC, of course. It operates outside the realm of central bank control, which is what you need if you're wanting to have some settlement. You want to have some device that could be used as a settlement between various central bank digital currencies. It's got to be agnostic, and it has to be a neutral party. That neutral party, I mean, we have seen, all the infrastructure being laid down for XRP. And so I absolutely believe that 100%.
Yeah. Soft disclosure. I mean, it's obvious at this point.
It's obvious. It is obvious. And even the distractions, news article came out today about Swift, if you want to talk about that, and how they have said, oh, we're going to start working with Consensus to build out a ledgered system. Well, we know that Consensus has been a big Ethereum pusher, like big, massive Ethereum pusher. And I think this is an absolute total distraction. I don't think that Consensus and Ethereum and the EVM has the infrastructure, and the cost associated with it is going to be ridiculous. And so, but a lot of people come out and they say, oh, well, what about this? And as if it's a big attack on XRP Ledger and XRP. This is how my response has always been. I would never fear competition. That because competition is what drives innovation in this space, and it is the cure for complacency. And I have always expected that XRP Ledger, Ripple, and of course XRP, there would be a measure of competition.
Yeah.
And that does not scare me one iota, because I do believe that the infrastructure for the XRP Ledger and the utilization of XRP in this new digital economy is going to be astounding. Go ahead with what you got here.
I'm going to play this clip for everybody. This is from 2019. But I mean, the fact that Swift, even recently, didn't an article come out from Swift, and it apparently was a false article. I did comment on it, explaining to people, like, so what if they're building? Let them build, right? At the end of the day, settlement, it does come back down to XRP. Yeah. And, I really don't care the fact that they announced, hey, we're going to do this. And apparently this is what Swift said. They're building this blockchain payment system because of the rollout of stablecoins. But you see what happens then? We go back to that argument from 1 year ago. Oh, well, stablecoins are going to replace XRP. And this is the funny thing, right? Because we talked about this a year ago, and my answer and your answer, I'm sure, is still the same, right?
Yeah,
they're not. Stablecoins and XRP are not in competition. They're actually complementary.
That's right.
It's BlackRock's upcoming products. It doesn't matter. JP Morgan's coin, any other version of stablecoins. Yeah, they're going to be pegged to fiat currencies, right? So they're tokenizing money. They're digitizing dollars. It doesn't matter. They need a neutral bridge asset to settle.
Absolutely, they do, and it has to be neutral. What you're talking about, they're agnostic. It has to be agnostic. Yep. Go ahead.
Settlement is key, right? Always has been. I think that's really what this whole revolution is about. It's about changing the settlement infrastructure that the dollar has. And if you're talking about cross-border networks, cross-border currency flows, and that's something SWIFT is deeply involved in. You need something that's tied to not just one jurisdiction, or one central bank. You need something that can complement the whole system overall in different economies. So this does tie into the whole SWIFT narrative. And, I don't think SWIFT is trying to kill Ripple. I think they're trying to adopt to the same realities that everybody else is. And that's why they're building this infrastructure to interact with tokenized assets and stable coins, because they don't really have a choice.
They have no choice, zero choice. Absolutely. The world is changing at such a rapid pace. I want you to play your video, but boy, you almost triggered me there. I could have went on a big monologue.
After the video, you should. I think this video is going to be good for everybody.
Yeah,
I increased the volume too, so we can all hear it. One, two. Right.
There's a discussion surrounding crypto replacing SWIFT. So we did speak earlier where you mentioned that it's not necessarily about replacing SWIFT, it's about complementing it. So let's get some more information on this.
Okay. I used to work for SWIFT. I was SWIFT for 20 years, so SWIFT is flowing through my veins. SWIFT is the preeminent messaging system for the financial industry, which covers, say, payments, FX, trade, in terms of securities, etc., reconciliations, etc. What we're looking with crypto is where SWIFT would have a store or forward system for most of its payment transactions, and we need service level agreements that in a certain time I would do something, the payment turns up at a certain time during the day. Here we're looking at the new network styles, which allow instant, real-time movement of the funds and visibility of those funds as well. So we would not have a situation where banks need to come back to you and say, have my funds arrived? It's 3 days later. I need to find query messages moving around the network. There's nothing like that. I don't believe Ripple is going to replace SWIFT. Ripple is one of the complementary networks, which is going to allow those institutions who need real time to make use of that. I think we're also seeing that SWIFT are changing their network capability, so that real time will be a possibility as well. But we may also see Ripple XRP moving across the SWIFT network as a currency when we're using something like FX.
Yeah.
Some people said they can't hear anything. I don't know if that's accurate, but I mean, I can hear things clearly.
Just to summarize, really what he's saying is RTGS, so real-time gross settlement, is going to operate on the SWIFT network it's not going to be a replacement, it's going to be a collaboration. And I have always agreed with that look, and Ripple themselves have come out and said, look, we're not trying to replace, we're trying to work with the system to evolve it into a more modern mechanism for, moving value, not just money, value around the wide world. Now I say that because remember, we're talking about real world asset tokenization and the tokenization of everything. If you could instantaneously within seconds transfer the ownership of stock from one individual, one legal entity to the other, and we know that the Depository Trust and Clearing Corp, trillions of dollars a day, quadrillions a year, are already using distributed ledger technology to do that with R3 Corda, utilizing XDC, XRP, and whatever to make that settlement happen. When we see the tokenization of all of these markets, and of course, the debt market, which is going to be huge, the infrastructure that's going to come about is going to be tremendous, and you're going to see a collaboration. Now, one thing I would point out is this. A lot of the regulatory clarity that we're seeing right now is to actually back and reinforce the whole debt market, the very source of all liquidity and the movement of money and value around the world. It begins and ends with the debt market. We know that. The central bank system that has been developed around the globe, whether it's the European Central Bank, if it's a national central bank in Australia or Canada, or the Federal Reserve or whatever. Now, I want to point something out with respect to that. I'm just going to share a something right here. Let me just get over here and share this, because I think this is a terrific segue into what we're talking about. And I want you to see where this publication is coming from. Now, if you can see where this publication is coming from the Financial Crimes and Enforcement Network, that is publishing this on their website with respect to a Treasury request related to the, get this, guiding and establishing national innovation for the U.S. stablecoins, the Genius Act. Now, what does the Genius Act do? Well, of course, the Genius Act, basically what it does is it provides a guaranteed client for the purchasing of U.S. debt, because they have to hold Treasury bonds, right? So listen to this right here. And we've mentioned this before, but it just bears repeating big. The U.S. Department of the Treasury issued a request for comment required by the Genius Act, not because of the Genius Act. It is literally required, which furthers the administration's policy, get this, of supporting the responsible growth and use of digital assets. Now, that use and how they want to do it was outlined in the executive order. It gives it right here. And this was for strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology. Okay, fine. Now, look what it's asking down here. It says the request for comment offers the opportunity for interested individuals. Well, who do you think these interested individuals and organizations are going to be? They're going to be these major banking partners. They're going to be organizations like SWIFT, like Ripple, like all these money service businesses, and of course, major banks, to provide feedback on innovative or novel methods. So they have working groups, the techniques and strategies that regulated financial institutions use, or get this, or could potentially use. So what is the potential use? Come on, we know what it is. It's the infrastructure of this new digital economy. But why? To detect illicit activity involving these digital assets, because of course they have to secure the sandbox before they can let everybody in there to play with the sand. Obviously, it's the new digital economy. But in particular, the Treasury asked commenters about the application program interfaces. So what are we talking about there? We're talking about the networks that people will use to on and off board and interfere, right? And interact, not interfere. Artificial intelligence, absolutely going to be a part of it. Digital identity verification and use of blockchain technology and monitoring, by the way, as required by the Genius Act. So this whole idea that, you know, this system is going to work, because it is a great segue, it is going to work in conjunction with the broader, you know, infrastructure is there, but it's going to evolve it to a level where the way in which we're all going to interact and the digital identity verification, you are going to use that, by the way, to get access to all your government services, your healthcare. You're going to it even could be accessed and used by social media, by lenders, by whatever. It is coming. There's zero doubt about it. How many networks can handle that kind of infrastructure?
No, I totally agree with you. And just to set the stage, set the stage for the conversation. I know, unfortunately, I'm sorry, guys, a lot of people did not get to hear the video. Sorry, give me 1 second. My apologies. Okay, I was reading a comment. I just wanted to make sure there was no misunderstanding. You know, people seem to mix my brother and myself quite often.
Yeah, they do.
They're very different people, right?
That is for sure. If you know them, you'd know that's a fact.
Like I saw an article come out the other day, and I don't want to name names, but it had my name in there, but it had a picture of my brother.
Oh my God. Sorry, man.
No, it's funny. You know, I kind of laugh at these things. Anyway, setting the stage for the conversation as far as the SWIFT video for those who didn't hear it. First thing, that the devil's in the detail. Apparently, he was telling her previous to the conversation that XRP was complementary. I'm sorry, that something was going to complement the SWIFT system. And then he did mention the fact that we would be using XRP, you know. So again, it comes down to settlement. And, you know, if we're going to take a moment here to reflect on some of the other deeper narratives and setting the stage. When it comes to SWIFT, I think it's important to understand the whole SWIFT versus Ripple debate. A lot of the other people out there are looking at this through a very narrow lens, right? And they see breaking news. about a new payment system, for instance.
Yep.
And oh my God, give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. David, take the mantle for a sec.
Yeah, sure. So one question that I would like to address is Adam has Adam. I'm going to try Zayario. So question that he proposes is, he says, so is XRP actually going to be separate from the central banking system? Yes, that is exactly how it's going to be. It has always been that way. XRP is not actually a central bank digital currency in and of itself. It's a bridge asset between various currencies and not just CBDCs. That is the whole point of, XRP. It's that bridge. It's a capability to act as a bridge asset, not just transferring messaging, but value with it. And that is what's going to resolve the whole nostro vostro and solve one of the world's greatest problems, the liquidity issue. We are going to move into a completely on-demand liquidity financial system. And when you think about the tokenization of real world assets and include that with the tokenization of securities, think about this. You're going to watch your average stock be traded 365, 24/7 like crypto. Can you imagine? Do you realize most of the trading that happens, it's not individuals like you and I. It's all automated bots that are doing trades in the thousands by the second. By the second. It is a major, major difference than what we envision when we think of the, the stock market, the New York Stock Exchange floor, and you got all these brokers and they're all yelling and ticker tapes are flying. Those days are done, guys. It is machines and AI that is actually doing all the trading, the market making and everything, and it's doing it lightning fast. You cannot compete against that as an individual. You are going to be utilizing information that is and agents of AI and this, that, whatever. Digital ID is going to be a big part of that, because as you interact with that, how are they going to verify, right? Because it talked about verifying individuals in order to prevent illicit activity from bringing the system down. So they are going to implement an infrastructure that's going to do that. It has to be outside of the system, and that can, work almost like over all the ledgers at one time in that regard. And so XRP facilitates that in a big way. That is the end settlement.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump off.
No,
Okay.
you had to. That's fine.
Well,
no, but it was a good question that Adam brought.
No, that's great. I wish I heard.
Well, Adam is saying, I thought the entire purpose of crypto was to get away from central bank control.
I was about to get into that.
That is almost laughable when you think about who created Bitcoin.
That's like the last segment of this conversation we're going to cover. But what I was going to say is, like, with all this stuff about breaking news about these payment systems, this blockchain integration, the partnerships, what a lot of people who are new to the space don't realize is that most of this infrastructure, I'm not kidding about this, was designed and positioned years ago. Okay.
Decades,
so it's not random. It's been coordinated all together. And I think that's why so much of it is like what's presented is actually being recycled. Right. If you go back as far as 2016, 2017, 2018, oh my God, news, you had to really look deep for this stuff. But Ripple employees were leaving to go work for Swift, to go work for BlackRock, to go work for JP Morgan. At the same time, you had people from the U.S. Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, and even the Securities Exchange Commission
going to work for
Ripple. Right.
Yeah. You can't make
that
it up.
Not a coincidence. Right before the lawsuit. Okay. Let's be realistic. So there's a real revolving door of, I would say, talent. Okay. Knowledge and even strategy. And the whole premise of what I'm saying here is that the integration of the system has been happening in the background for many years. For instance, just to give another example, like Ripple's partnerships in Africa, Dubai, Bhutan, or wherever else, like, it's not new. 90% of those announcements are actually old news. So why am I saying this? Right? Because what you're seeing now is something called a drip of information that's timely being done. It's soft disclosure, breadcrumbs. They're trying to lead the public towards a conclusion that's already been designed and engineered long ago. So it's not happening in a vacuum. It's actually directly tied to some of the things we're not talking about today. And that's the broader geopolitical shifts we're seeing, for instance, with the BRICS nations, with Iran, with the countries that are trying to move away from the dollar. And, even for the institutions here in the United States, the dollar once was the prize, but it's a weapon. Okay.
Always
Been
has
used.
been.
Yes. It's been used as
Even
a
against its
mechanism,
own people.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sanctions, pressure, and ultimately to achieve a new world order. So even the institutions built
Mhm.
around the systems are outgrowing it. And that's what I think everyone
Yep.
else needs to understand. So it's not necessarily about eliminating the dollar. It's about kind of
Mhm.
reintegrating the dollar and evolving it with various other currencies and
Yep.
having a neutral bridge asset that in some way form has to be collateralized by gold.
Yep.
So that's a whole
Well,
different discussion.
whole different discuss. But to your point, one of the big things that you can see in terms of like, okay, who's at the leadership of a lot of these organizations? So the IMF, well, the IMF right now is Christina Georgieva, but before that, it was
Mhm.
Christine Lagarde. Where did Christine Lagarde go? Well, she went to head up the ECB. Okay, you want another example of moving the chess pieces? Who was the head of the Bank of England? It was Mark Carney.
Mhm.
Mark Carney, head of the Bank of England. Where's Mark Carney now? Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada. Mark Carney and Trudeau, by the way, are, lack of a better word, disciples of Klaus Schwab and his WEF crew.
Yeah.
Look, the guys, you can't make this nonsense up. It is totally, you can see the chess pieces being moved. You can see the regulatory clarity pieces all coming about. The Genius Act, it literally, like we said earlier, it exists to provide a guaranteed purchaser of US debt.
Yeah.
And it's stable coins. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, the current one, literally came out and said that they are going to underpin the dollar with stable coins. How
Mhm.
on earth do you do that? Well, stable, you got a guaranteed purchaser of the debt. That's going to kick the can down the road. Digital identity, it's going to actually, sad to say, but it's going to tighten the noose. We know that in terms of monetary control. But it allows for these monetary instruments to not only be used in like the dollar has as a weapon, but you program your monetary policy right into the currency. It can expire. Get that? It can
Well,
expire.
it's
It is
it's important to note, David, though,
Yeah.
XRP is still
Yeah.
to a degree outside of the central bank digital
It
currency
is.
purview.
It is.
So
It is
the real
not. They don't have
question,
control of it. Yeah.
exactly. The real question later on down the road, once we have more regulations and clarity, right, we're going to be
Right.
asking ourselves, well, hey, I own XRP. I might as well be able to transact in XRP. If that is the case, then it kind of puts you in a different scenario compared to somebody who gets left behind in the pendulum swing of wealth, where it shifts in these big tectonic shifts that happen in wealth.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
part of that wealth transfer. So if you do get left behind, you're in a different situation where you need some
Yeah.
sort of universal basic income, some way to be relevant
That's
to
correct.
society, right?
Yes.
And that only could emerge in a real financial collapse, something like that. But
And
we're
I
gonna
do think there is a
find out.
catalyst. There is a catalyst. We're seeing a few
Mhm.
canaries in the coal mine that are starting to drop.
Mhm.
And one of them I think is a big tell is the price of gold right now. That tells you everything. Look, the markets are at all-time highs. Why is gold at an all-time high at the same time?
Yeah.
There is something going on, because really when the equity markets are booming, gold usually is not at all-time highs in the way in which it is now. But it is, and it's because, of course, there is a massive buying going on by central banks around the wide world. Basically, they're betting against their own system. Come on.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Typically when gold goes up, though, it means a lot of different things, right? So for the average Joe and Jane who don't have the financial resources to access gold, it's not a good
Yeah.
sign. It means more dollar debasement.
Dollar
And
debasement,
it's not
gold.
just the dollar; it's all
Yeah.
currencies that are essentially tied to the dollar. But it
Mhm.
also means that there's a lot of geopolitical instability and war, also, right? The other side of this is that every time Bitcoin starts to go to new all-time highs, I'm sorry, did I say Bitcoin? Gold, I'm sorry.
Yeah, gold. Yeah.
When
Mhm.
gold starts to go to all-time highs, it has a small correction and Bitcoin follows. I've noticed that too in the
Yeah.
big charts. So that kind of also can confirm that we are going to see another leg up in cryptocurrencies. And that
Yeah.
ties us into all the ETFs and some of the bigger stuff that are happening and the regulations. So again, more regulated capital coming into the ecosystem. Very
Right.
positive for investors. But then you do have
Yeah.
to ask some of the other questions about, like,
Mhm.
Chainlink, for instance, right?
Yep. Chainlink.
I keep getting this, Versan. No,
Interestingly
they're
enough,
gonna,
not even blockchain.
yeah, yeah. Well,
It's an oracle.
I mean, the XRP still is the missing link, and I think
Mhm.
Chainlink, for instance, if you look
Mhm.
closely at its tech, okay, it
Yep.
provides data and interoperability patches, just
Yes.
patches, okay.
Mhm.
So Swift can experiment with other blockchain add-ons, and this is essentially what I see 99% of the crypto ecosystem, if they thrive and survive. It's add-ons, okay. It's not
Mhm.
layer one infrastructure. But they're not
Mhm.
going to solve the core problem. How do you move value instantly and settle across networks without, the friction, the
Right.
volatility, and the counterparty risk? Because that's what
Mhm.
XRP was designed for: neutral, bridge, liquidity, and global and scalability.
Mhm.
That's important too, right? So
Right.
it's not about tribalism here, what I'm
No.
sharing. Okay. Some of the loudest Bitcoin maxis who once dismissed XRP are quietly accumulating it and still talking about it. Bitcoin,
Right. Of
right?
course.
My coin versus your coin. It's really stupid in the
Mhm.
grand scheme of things when you think about it, because at the end of the day, I think it's about the tech. And I've always, since I started this channel, I've always been fascinated with the tech,
Mhm.
right? It's the
Yeah.
infrastructure that can actually handle the next phase of where this is all going. And to
Right.
your point, it's all artificial intelligence. And
Yeah.
if I may share one more thing.
Yes, please.
So this is just something I've been following, like Palantir, Oracle, and all these bigger, AI tech companies. And what they're doing is, I believe they're building an autonomous economy. Okay. And
Mhm.
if that is the case indeed, this is
Mhm.
where it really gets interesting, because if wealth is becoming digitized, if
Yep.
wealth is going to, have some degree of control of the access points become very critical, right?
Right. Yep.
Wallets, tokenized assets, digital IDs
Mhm.
as well, and of course,
Yeah.
private key management. That basically becomes the gateway to economic inclusion. And that's where it gets
Yeah.
scary. Okay.
It
So
does.
yeah, AI also to a degree is going to determine whether you
Mhm.
qualify to
Yep.
be participating in this. And that's kind of scary. I
And that's,
mean,
I guess, yeah, sure. I think that's where the
uh,
social credit thing comes in. And remember this, though, even Swift, Swift was not just about transferring, messages for money and creating a cross-border remittance system. Swift and, its whole network was about who to include and who to exclude. Remember, they used Swift as a means to enforce sanctions on other countries to bend them to their political will. So it was a control mechanism in and of itself. An example that I love to use, because a lot of people say, well, under that new system, we're going to be under monetary controls. We already are. Think of we've all got we all got our debit cards. I don't need to pull mine out, but we all got debit cards. And, you have usually a limit of a point of sale transaction of about 3,000 to 3,500. Most people, it's around there. And of course, they say, well, that's because, we want to protect you if you lost it. We wouldn't want anyone just being able to empty your bank account and all this and that. But isn't it interesting that the same bank that gave you the debit card gives you a credit card, another piece of plastic? Because they know that, hey, when you're out there and you're at the store and you're wanting to buy that Chesterfield over there for $4,000, you're not going to pick up the phone and phone to your bank, say, hey, can you up my debit card limit so that I can use my own money that's sitting in my own bank account? We are already under capital controls. You're going to pull out that other piece of plastic, and what are you going to do? You are going to create money on the spot by
yeah,
buying it with the credit card. Now it's in the system. Even if you go back home and transfer it and pay it off immediately, it has now been created. It was not in existence before you made that purchase. That is monetary control 101. But people, because we're so acquiesced to this system that we're in right now, we don't even think about it.
yeah,
I mean, I think most people keep less than a couple $100 in cash in their wallet at any one time.
not
And
me.
further to that, there's only about 5% of cash, of real cash, for all the deposits that are on record. Only 5% exists.
Well, there's a war on
95.
cash.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so it's because of control. It is illegal to make a cash purchase in the EU for over 3,000 euros. Illegal. You can be charged with a crime. Can you imagine? But that's what it is. And so
No, I agree with you.
so the new system is just going to be an evolution and an advancement of what we already got.
100%. And here's something that we should all pause and think about. It's really clear, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. Okay, it's just
No,
this
but it's a
is
fact.
the digital grid coming together, right? The very
Yes.
same institutions that rig the markets and in the analog world, are now building the rails for the digital world. Yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sure, this is great for adoption. Okay, and that's how they're
Mhm.
selling this as convenience because it's going to bring enormous institutional liquidity. Let's be
Right.
very clear. It also gives the institutions the power to rig the system all over again, but only this time digital framework, meaning it can be
Right.
more efficient, more traceable, and more tightly controlled, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it's ironic, because almost comical, honestly. And
Mm.
is that so many voices in the ecosystem who used to scream, "And the banks, and the Fed," for instance. There was an article about this. Let's be freaking realistic, okay?
Yeah,
Or
that's
the
right.
deep state is finished.
Yeah.
Now they're cheering this on.
Yeah.
They're cheering this on. These are the same
Yeah.
people who said, "Let's beat the
Yeah.
banks at their own game." They're
And now they're under
applauding
covers. They're
Oh,
under the
they're
covers.
applauding the very institutions that once they claimed to be fighting against.
Yep.
So again, I get it. I'm
Mhm.
optimistic in the sense of liquidity is coming into
Yep.
blockchain, DeFi, tokenization, but don't kid yourself, right? It's the gatekeepers who are just rebuilding their fortress in a digital form.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Bitcoin, its whole white paper was, like you said, a rail against the man, kind of deal like that. Well, they're all celebrating these ETFs. Well, who do you think is putting out the ETFs? It's all these bankers, the big bankers, the ones that brought the 2008 and 9 crisis to us, the very thing that was, that Bitcoin came out of the ashes of that, burning down. And yet, here they are promoting all that. And to me, it's the biggest distraction that there
Let me
ever
pull
was.
something up.
Oh, you got to accumulate Bitcoin. Don't go out and
Yeah.
accumulate physical assets like gold and silver. No, you want Bitcoin. Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Digital
pulling this
gold.
up for y'all. I did add this to my Patreon the other
Okay,
day.
go
And,
ahead.
and listen,
Yep.
also on my Patreon followers, I'm really trying hard to balance everything, and I'm working more to put more content on the Patreon, okay? Because it's fair to those who are actually supporting me and paying for my work. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is I just added this to the Patreon. Now,
Mhm.
this is from 2000 and well, this is one document. There are a few. Now, this is
Mhm.
where it gets really weird, okay?
Mhm.
So in 2019, I remember before I started getting heavily invested into all of this and like really studying it, right before the pandemic, okay, none of us knew this was coming. They actually
Mhm.
posted an image that they took down later. You might be able to find it on Google. And
Mhm.
I'm going to tread very carefully here because this directly ties into the digital ID discussion and the larger infrastructure that's being
Sure.
built around, right? So whether we like it or not, again, digitization of all things is already underway, the internet of value, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I read these reports. I actually do. I drink my tea. I take my time. I read these reports in detail, and I've read all of them, the WEF, all of them, the ones I share on the Patreon. But Larry Fink, for instance, you know, and Oracle, his recent comments, it's all reflecting to some of the things that were already said in 2019, which is crazy because they said your DNA will be your data, essentially.
Mhm.
And that is so scary if you think about it. And then, yes, what's his name? Larry Ellison, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
from Oracle. He said people are going to have to change their behaviors and digitization will be the mechanism to ensure it. If that doesn't give you goosebumps, I don't know what will.
Yeah,
Right?
and what behaviors are they wanting us to change, right?
I know what behaviors, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't even say it on here. I can't even say it.
Yeah,
But
I
if you
know.
now look at what's happening with Pam Bondi, right? And
Yeah.
see, now we're going deep, talking about labeling dissent, hate speech. Now this is where it gets weirder. Okay, listen,
Mhm.
lawmakers are creating the very conditions to create outrage, whether you're on this side or that side, and they're using that outrage that they created to justify the new rules that they're writing.
Mhm.
So it's just controlled opposition at scale. So they start the fire, then they sell you the extinguisher, right?
That's
And that
it. That's what I
that
like
is
to
the
say. The
tightening.
same guys that lit the fire show up with the hose.
That's the tightening of control. And of
Uh-huh.
course, I already know this. I'm gonna get attacked, and that's okay.
I'll
A
be
lot of
tread
our
softly.
a lot of our friends will, they'll be like, Versan, oh, I got an email yesterday. This is so
Yeah,
weird. This is
yeah.
weird. I got an email from somebody who took this a little bit religiously.
Oh,
He didn't
really?
want to book a session, but he went through to book a session and he said,
Yeah.
XRP is Jesus Christ.
Oh boy.
Like,
That's
it just,
no. Mm-mm.
and I started to think to myself about
Yeah.
how a lot of people are being misled, and they're using scripture to justify that these changes are actually good. They don't realize what the hell's going on. And there's a big segment of the population who actually believe this.
Right.
It's too far.
Right.
Yes.
It is too far. That's taking,
Calm down,
like, I mean,
oh my God, please don't tell me to calm down. I'm more calm than a cucumber. Okay.
Oh, someone said calm down.
You don't know who you're talking to.
Well,
I'm a
it may be directed. It
individual.
could have been directed at me too. So who knows?
I just don't like bullshit, and I see a lot of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've been in this space too
we
long.
We can't afford that. Not this time in history.
Yeah, we've been in it too long. I mean, for us, we've seen every kind of up, down, sideways action, all the manipulation that goes on from A to Z in the space. Watched it transform our life and everything like that. And we may have our positions, but I'll tell you this, not so emotionally tied to it that it causes a big disruption in our life, because we understand what's coming and we've already seen what's there. And, I always say it this way: I'll be a part of this space until they try to put something in me or on me. Simple as that. And, and then after that, I'm out. But let's be very, very honest with one another. We can make significant profit by adopting this technology really early on, front running institutions in a way we could have never done in any asset class before that. But the reality is, the reason why this is what is coming as a result of all of this technology is a more controlled economic environment. And that is a fact, Jack. And there is no, and to your point, when they start to utilize our digital IDs to grant us or deny us access to various things in society based on who knows what, whether it's social credit or who knows what, that is a it almost feels like an inevitability. Now, we're not there yet, and in this jurisdiction of the wide world, but other jurisdictions they are.
Yeah.
And other jurisdictions around the world, they're already there. Come on. And they're utilizing the technology. You can't even walk down a back street without your face being recognized in those cities.
Well, the UK, for instance, I have a lot of friends, supporters, and clients out there in the UK. And I really feel for them. I do. And it's not just the UK. This is happening in many different countries. Canada, they've experienced this, but they're actually at the front line of these new policies. Okay. And history is so important. Okay. If you look at history, and it shows us that governments always become authoritarian when they're not strong. Okay. When they're losing the narrative, for instance. And I do believe to a degree people are waking up. Okay.
Yeah.
And when people start to wake up, essentially the party's over, and it kind of puts you in a position where you have to take action quickly. And if everybody starts to kind of focus and hone in on all of this disciplinary action, then they start to realize this and they move faster. So what can we do to fix this? Right? How do you fight for this? And I've said this many times over the years. The only other individual who I've respected, and we follow each other on X, her name is Dr. Pippa Malmgren. Her father worked for Nixon in the White House back then. And I tried to get her on the show a few times to discuss this, but she's the only person who raised her voice at the government summit in 2021 or 22. And she said that we need to fight for a digital constitution of human rights because everything is done digitally, right? And of course, we have to insist on convertibility back into fiat because there is a war on cash. And there's a war on cash because they are so desperate to track, trace, and tax you on.
Yeah, the war is on anonymity. You're right.
That too, right? Yeah. The war on cash is probably just to justify it, saying that's used for terrorism and things like that. The same way they said about Bitcoin, for instance, right?
Right.
So anyone can hold tangible assets, right? You have to build a reliable community. You have to make friends in the ecosystem. And it's very challenging in such a digital world when we're overstressed and we're working constantly, right? But if you can hold tangible assets, gold, silver, platinum, food, water, emergency supplies, that's kind of where resilience starts at home. Okay. So that's like the first action. And I'm all for progress. I've always been. And innovation. But I think freedom is so important, and we
liberty
are very fast, right? and it's all
Yeah.
disguised under revolution and rebellion.
Yeah, this is the fourth industrial revolution. And of course, but those that have coined that phrase are the very ones that want to kind of remove the liberty from the system. I mean, by 2030, you won't own anything. You'll be happy, planned obsolescence, all that goes along with that. But what's interesting is that, of course, they sidelined a lot of those individuals that were encouraging people to be prepared. All the preppers and all these guys. I remember there was a show on called Doomsday Preppers, how ridiculously nonsensical these people were being, and they would take the extreme. But, the average person, it makes good sense. Look, if we saw a financial collapse, and you're not prepared to be able to take care of your own family with food or water or decent shelter and stuff like that, it's going to be a very bad situation. And look, there is a major disconnect between the economy and the market. And you do not have to be a rocket scientist to see that, because like I say, when all this was going on, all shipping, manufacturing, receiving, service businesses, everything around the wide world came to an absolute screeching halt. People on their balconies banging their pots and pans in celebration of all that was being done, right? Mm-hmm. The world had one of the biggest secular bull markets that it had ever had, in an environment where nothing was being produced, nothing was being bought and sold, nothing was being moved. Come on. Can you not see the disconnect between the economy and the market? Oh, you can. Who controls the market? Just start connecting the dots. Do you think that that's not going to happen? They proved it. They can shut the globe down like that if they really want. And they did it. Test run as far as I'm concerned.
Well, to your point, market cycles, they don't really change. I think only the perception around it does. Greed seduces people at peaks. Timing distorts judgment. Beneath all of what we see happening in these headlines, like the cycle keeps repeating. And, I don't know if it's 80 to 100 years, but you could say this is another Bretton Woods moment. But wealth isn't made really by recognizing the cycles. It's about acting against them, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. This guy has this comment, Machiavelli. What a name. Machiavelli, 84. And he says, love you guys, but don't be hypocrites. You darn well know in what you're investing. Yes, we do. And how are we being hypocrites?
And we're the only one giving you both sides of the discussion.
We're literally coming out and telling you we are looking at this as, look, yes, there is an opportunity. I guess we should just sit there and allow ourselves to be steamrolled by the future rather than putting ourselves in a position to be actually, preparing for ourselves for a eventuality. I mean, it doesn't make any common sense whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned. It's not hypocrisy to actually see what's happening and see the dangers that are there, and at the same time see, okay, if I'm going to position myself to survive in that environment, then I should probably be doing something with that information today. What, are we all going to run and hide and go live in some corner of, under some rock somewhere? No, that is not occupying until he comes. That is living in cowardice. You know what? Our voices may very well be silenced, but I'll tell you what, I'd rather be silenced for standing up and having something to say than literally waiting until they just come knocking on my door because they've been to everyone else's door beforehand. Come on.
Few things also. I might as well just address the comments towards the end. Dave makes 2 videos a day. Versan makes 1 a week. I used to make videos once a week. And that was back in 2021 when they shut my channel down. I lost about, 65 videos of very hard work and good research and a lot of energy. I'm very active, but I like to write more. It's such a headache producing content. And I don't read a teleprompter when I do my content. I just speak from my heart. And that's why I do this. I can cover so much ground in one video throughout a bunch of headlines throughout the whole week. So for me,
because it's what's coming out is what's been put in.
I've been talking about this for 7 years. I'm tired, guys. I really am. Okay. So it's not that I don't want to make the content. I just don't have the energy to it. And I'm also very busy with sessions. So we have clients all over the world. And it's growing. It's not slowing down. And as well as the other statement from Radical Vibes, I did write a detailed article about this, that you don't really own your assets. It's called David Webb's The Great Taking. If you read it and actually apply it to where we are today, and he's missing some critical information from his research. So the Great Taking is essentially the great consolidation. And I did write an article about this. I'm going to post it in here. It has a lot of information, very positive, very powerful. And I do have solutions towards the end. I just added it in there. So Radical Vibes, I encourage you to read it. It's really good information. You will enjoy it.
It is. And I think this is just, see, you know, a lot of us, you know, we just have this perception, you know, we think, oh, well, you know, the bumper sticker, he who dies with the most toys wins. It's this whole Western idea of that we own it. But really, do you? I mean, if you don't pay your property taxes, they come and take your property. You don't pay your registration to license your vehicle annually. Guess what? That car's going nowhere. You don't pay to renew your driver's license. You're not driving. You know, you don't actually, I mean, there are just so many things that if we don't actually acquiesce to the rules and all this kind of stuff, we're not going to have the life that we think is freely ours. And that is something that I think a lot of people, we have, look, case in point, back when, you know, before all the X-ray machines at the airport showed up, and I remember the controversy on this was massive, how an invasion of privacy it was, and on and on and on, and the health effects and everything you can possibly fathom. Slowly but surely, everybody walks through those machines every day. You know why? They love convenience more than they love liberty. That's why.
I agree. Yeah.
Because you can stand in line and you can be pat down and you can go through a 30, 40-minute ordeal. You'll miss your flight, no doubt.
Yeah.
Or you can acquiesce.
It's really,
exactly. Right.
Really detailed here, because what you have to recognize is that some of these large conglomerates have put us in a situation, they've engineered us in a situation to, you know, we have to kind of fit in, and they've used those human behaviors to exploit us. Right. And those exploitations now fit into the regulatory environment that they're building. Which kind of push us or bridge us, no pun intended, with XRP, right? Bridging us into the digital ecosystem because it's convenient, but more importantly, our whole lives are digital now. So they've kind of gone in the way with it, if you will, like a crime on a global scale. The thing we have to fight for is convertibility, a digital ID, people taking back the power, essentially. And blockchain, yes, it can allow us to do this, but you know, retweeting information is not enough. That's not activism, in my opinion.
No, it is not. No,
it's not.
Yeah, we definitely need a digital constitution of rights. And I do think we should be advocating for that. In the countries where we have the liberty and the freedom and the voice to do that right now, it is incumbent upon us to actually get out there and really push for something like that. Otherwise, we are just going to fumble into, and we're going to lose those. If we're going to lose the opportunity to have it, just like we've lost so much, you know, of our mobility and our liberty and all that type of stuff. I mean, you can't even fly domestically in the United States without a smart ID. You can't. And that's just a fact, Jack. And of course, you know, it's because people are looking for their security, and they would have arguments for this and for that. Well, you know, the old adage was that, you know, those who would be willing to give up their liberty for security deserve neither. And that's what we're willing to acquiesce. We're willing to, you know, and not only our own, we're mortgaging the liberty of future generations for the promise of security. And it just feels like the world is less secure than it ever was, if you ask me.
Yeah, but see, also that's been orchestrated, right?
Yeah.
So again, you kind of keep, not you, but just generally speaking.
No. Generally
speaking, you know, these conversations can go on forever, ladies and gentlemen.
They could,
I mean, it is a web of lies and deceit that has gotten us to where we are today, and that's important to understand, reflect on. But
like, why are we here? Absolutely.
Yeah, we're here to pay taxes.
Well, no, but why are we in this place right now, and how did we get here? Well, you know, obviously the dominoes have been falling, and so we can see where we're going. I, for one, think, okay, if in the meantime I can position my family and myself and those around me, people I love, and also a community that I interact with, to provide, guidance and this kind of like, hey, look behind here, then, hey, I'm going to do the best I can, but it's coming whether we like it or not. Let's be honest with one another, at least.
We're always honest with this community.
There's no stopping it. It is coming. So,
I mean, raising awareness right now in every dynamic is more, critical than ever, because it's true. The scale and speed of all of this change is accelerating, and traditional financial systems are basically being replaced with models that are artificial intelligence, and that is going to bring some major disruptions. I don't know if you saw an article that came out from a Harvard University professor the other day.
What was his name?
60% of Americans are going to lose their income. 60%.
Yeah. Oh, and that was on the AI models and all that. Right. And then what do you do to keep these people mentally and psychologically occupied? In fact, I saw an interview, I think, with that same person, make some really great arguments. And
I can circle it back into crypto, though. See, at the heart of this autonomous economy, if they do succeed with it, but regardless if it is autonomous or not, AI algorithms are kind of moving a lot of the value now. They're
for sure they are, and even in traditional markets they are. Yeah.
So what happens then? At the heart of this is all protocol ownership. Then remember what I said? It's like controlling the access points. Okay. Owning individual tokens or speculative assets, probably not the best idea, but owning the protocol means controlling those access points, a gateway, right, to the digital economy. And I think the protocol owners, those are the people holding their XRP, not giving it to somebody else to manage or hold. Okay?
Definitely.
They are going to be the true gatekeepers in the emerging system, who, to a degree, I would say, determining who can participate and how value will flow. And this ultimately changes the whole dynamic of what it means to earn income. And this is maybe where that generational wealth can kind of fit into this strategy, because the old model, we traded time for money, right?
Yes.
That is obsolete now. So in the new economy, and that's why people are working harder and harder for less and less. Okay. In the new economy, income is going to be generated through ownership, through staking, lending, participating within the digital ecosystem.
And everything will be tokenized, not just our monetary system. Every bit of everything's going to be tokenized. Man, water's going to be tokenized. If they could, I think they'd tokenize the air we breathe. But I mean, come on. Everything you can fathom, you just say something, it'll all be tokenized. Yeah.
Well, that means wealth is going to be built by those who secure their position in those foundational access points, that infrastructure, not by trading it, but by kind of holding on to it. And that's another thing. I'm going to be, I think we're going on Paul Barron's show.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have said
I like Paul Barron. I really do. He's a good guy.
I probably shouldn't have announced it. Oh, shit.
Well, if you are, that's fantastic. He's a great guy. Guy.
Anyway,
we should have him on. We should have him on here. We should have him on our show.
That'd be great. That'd be great. So, I saw a post that they were talking about this. There's a debate in the XRP ecosystem about whether you should stake your XRP or hold it. And to me, it didn't make sense to stake. I've always been against that. I always told people,
because you give custody of it to someone else, right?
Well, it's not about that. Hold it and wait for regulation to really take its hold. And that's when institutional demand, that's when, you have an opportunity to use this asset as collateral, if you will. And I have friends at JP Morgan who one here down the street, downtown, and they told me that this is coming, but regulation needs to come first. So
sure, of course.
Why would you be giving your XRP or staking it now for minimal gains when inflation is outpacing your yield? It didn't make sense.
Even these platforms that offer 40% APY, come on, they're scam.
Listen, it doesn't. It's not practical. And the final thing is, if XRP is a liquidity tool, so how can it be liquid if it's being locked in contracts for staking? That kind of defeats the purpose, you see?
Right. And it's not native proof of stake anyway. So it's not so much, it's just earning a yield. Now, I agree with you. I think that once we see this large institutional adoption, they will borrow it from us. So we will deposit our assets, let's say, with some of these major financial institutions who will utilize it, being in the system, allowing it to be used, and then we get paid for them to do that. So that's a different kind of situation, right? And maybe it'll be fractional as well. Like with the fractional reserve banking we got now, you put in $100 and, these guys lend out 100 to 1, that $100, just turned into like, 1,000 or whatever, when they let, you know what I mean? And so I think that, there will be that possibility for those of us down the road when we get the infrastructure in place. But it's going to be a different world. Going to be a different world.
And finally, I know we're over an hour, guys.
Yeah, that's okay. We should wind it up.
But the regulatory developments that we see now, we have the stablecoin, the Genius Act, the Clarity Act. Once it's there, I think in time we're going to see a lot of the bad actors get removed within these clear frameworks.
Yeah,
and I don't know when, but it's going to be a time of their choosing. It's going to green light the whole process, kind of where we are today with the Genius Act. But it's only going to accelerate institutional adoption, and it's going to open the floodgates for significant capital inflows.
I agree with that.
I think everyone should be protecting their XRP and keeping it on a cold wallet off the internet where it's not susceptible to attack.
In an RFID protected bag.
Yeah. I don't think staking is an appropriate time right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Until regulations are here, even though regulations is not something we should be fighting for, but it's kind of what's going to help take hold of the ones who control the rails, the payment corridors, the liquidity corridors, and the on and off ramps. This is where it gets critical, right? I think that's the choke point.
Yeah.
But until they bring the regulations there to justify bringing all this money in, then you have something there. Until then, I think
the framework is not, they are not going to launch this new digital economy until they have every piece of the puzzle ready to go. And they will, and there might be a catalyst. There might be a catalyst for it. But I do definitely believe, the infrastructure is there. Now, I know people have probably seen this a lot. Maybe I'll just give a glimpse of this one last time, because I think when we see this visually, and then we should probably take off.
Yeah.
Because we're at this a lot longer than we thought we were going to go to. Okay. All right. And I've showed this before, but I think it's worth, I don't know how many people have already seen this, but I'm just going to throw this up here and just show this, because the reality is, we are definitely headed this way. Of course, this is Atlantic Council's CBDC tracker. Now, Atlantic Council, just to point out, is not a blockchain-based organization. They track a lot of things in the economy. One of them, of course, is the development of CBDCs. If we were to just page down here and we see this interactive map of the whole wide world, you can see as we go around the globe, and I've showed this to so many people, and you can click on each one of these, but there's Canada, there's the US, there's the Bahamas. We can go into Mexico and Central America. We can, of course, go through South America on over to Africa, into Europe, of course, into, the Middle East and, Eastern world, and all the way back over here. You're down at the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia. The question to ask is now each one, by the way, this is all central banks. Are they going to be investing billions upon billions, if not trillions upon trillions, into a new financial infrastructure that they have zero intention of ever employing? That is the question. Do you really believe? No, they are going to use it. Absolutely. Zero doubt about it. That is the fact, Jack. And so, you can either just kind of wait until it comes and just, be a spectator, participant, and have it, or you can actually be someone, playing in a role, playing on the field, and you can, maybe you can get your hands on the ball. Maybe you can score that touchdown. Maybe you can change your finances and your family's generational wealth position in the wide world. There's a lot of things out there. For every transition, usually there is some opportunity there. During the Great Depression, there were multiple millionaires made. Yeah. That, so, but the biggest thing I think would be this, guys, there's so many people out to steal your XRP. They, if it had no value, why would they be doing that? Be wise. Yeah. Don't just buy into every, little thing that comes along. Just holding these assets, like Versan is saying here, it's probably one of the best things a person could do, is just to be able to hold some would be amazing.
Yeah. To end this conversation, really, everything is under threat, and you could sugarcoat it all you like. But the question is not really, is this going to happen or isn't? There are too many people that have allowed it to happen. And, it's really about recognizing, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to just, be stuck on these centralized platforms and call it a day, or are you going to take some real action? And I think, okay, crypto's great. All right. I think XRP, it really puts you outside of the purview to a degree, maybe XLM too. And there's a complementary relationship there. But it's in the money flower for the Bank for International Settlements about being outside the purview of central banks. Now, that is something maybe I need to write about and dig deeper, because what the hell does that mean? Outside the central bank purview as private crypto. Okay. And that kind of goes back to the whole infrastructure of blockchain. They can't control it, so they're building around it. Right. So who knows? We have to do a little more deep dives on all of this. But
well, it's all monetary instruments.
Well, you have to hedge against the system on something that you can own, physical, that you can touch, and you can prepare your family, your loved ones, and try to build a parallel system of freedom. That's what I'm fighting for, right?
One big one: get out of debt. Get out of debt. Get out of debt.
Yeah. Anyways, also I was gonna say, price prediction end of the year.
I have my ideas. I have my thoughts.
I've always said, man, that like XRP was designed to be at a high price to satisfy the demand for what it was intended to do. Right. Okay. So I don't do the whole price prediction anymore, because as long as it's coupled to Bitcoin, it's going to be tied to the debt market. Okay. Who knows? We'll see. But yes, get out of debt. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that is the first, your head's above water then, at least, and I know it can be hard because the system is created for us to remain in debt. It's not always our fault. You overspent. Come on. It's not about overspending. Sometimes it's just about mere and sheer survival. Kid gets out of high school, wants to pursue a career, medicine, whatever. It's going to take them $300,000 to do that.
It's not practical.
It's not practical. So what do they start off with? Debt. It's just an avenue for debt.
It is.
And then they graduate out of that. And then they graduate out of that with all this debt. And then they say, oh, okay, but don't worry, you can have a good job. Hey, you're going to need a credit. We're going to give you a credit. You're going to have a house over here. And then you work your 35, 40 years to pay that house off, do this. Maybe you got a few vacations in there, and then you retire. And all you're doing is you're just being a vehicle for the whole debt market. You're not prospering. That's not prosperity. That's making other people rich. And what blows me away is the people that are the wealthiest in the world, they dropped out of college.
Yep. Three times.
Yep. Elon Musk.
I'm not the wealthiest,
Bill Gates,
but I think I might be one day.
Some of the wealthiest people in the world don't even have a college degree. College degree does not equal intelligence. That is just a misnomer right there. But so sometimes it's like, okay, what system? Why are we drinking the Kool-Aid here? Like you're basically they've trained us to be pretty nice and pretty good lab rats, man, because we will jump on that hamster wheel and we'll pursue the proverbial carrot at the end of it, rather than take risk and be an entrepreneur and get out there and try to make your own way. Boy, they've educated risk right out of people. I'm telling you what, it's insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another issue, and we should probably wind it up.
Yeah, I know. It's just I love these conversations. Final thought maybe for anybody who is in college. Maybe you should rethink the strategy, because I always looked for a way to now it's different with AI. You have to look to automation. If you can create something that can be automated or provide a service, something you're really good at and love to do, like me, I really am passionate about what I do here at Black Swan.
Yes, of course.
So is my brother, and I think we do a pretty damn good job at educating people on this in our courses as well. And we've made people a lot of money, including ourselves. So I'm humbled to have helped other people accomplish that. But there are easier ways to make money now than going to college.
Than there ever has been.
Going to be a lawyer or a doctor.
That's right.
So Okay.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I love you guys, and you're a great community, and it was fantastic to have this conversation with you again, Versan, and
Always a pleasure.
just this community is just amazing, and yeah, we're just going to keep on keeping on, and watch how things change, and I think we're going to be in for the ride of our lives. The greatest wealth transfer, I believe, in the history of mankind. Obviously, I think it's true.
Amen. We'll get there, and let's just be vigilant, but more importantly, don't forget you're still a human being.
You are. Yeah,
Right?
spend
None
time
of
with
this means
family,
shit.
spend time with friends.
When we die, this is all gone. So.
Yeah. You're not. Yeah, remember that this is the journey. It's not the destination.
Okay, guys.
That's it. All right.
Be blessed, everyone. Take care. We'll see you next week.
You
Thank
bet.
you.